Welcome to ESG Decoded, where we unravel the business complexities at the intersection of environmental, social, and governance issues.
I'm Erika Schiller, and I'm joined by my ClimeCo colleagues, Emma Cox and Anna Stablum.
Get ready to explore the intersection of sustainability, innovation, and ethical leadership, the dynamic forces shaping our global economy.
From climate action to social responsibility, we're here to decode the ESG landscape by interviewing interesting leading figures across the globe that will empower you with actionable insights.
Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or just embarking on your sustainability journey, this podcast is your compass for navigating the future of responsible business practices.
Let's decode ESG together.
Welcome to ESG Decoded. I'm thrilled to welcome Jeff Yorzyk to the show today. Jeff is the Senior Director of Sustainability at HelloFresh, and Jeff's professional mission is the integration of environmental and social stewardship into business, literally fusing sustainability with business by focusing on risk and opportunity management. His expertise is rooted in sustainability program development and life cycle thinking with foundations in traditional EHS. His professional philosophy is that organizational sustainability must be defined in the context of specific operating environment and value chain, and that sustainability considerations must integrate effectively into operating environments with multiple priorities, including environment, community, and profitability. Before we get started, I do want to share, Jeff and I, we like to joke that we go way back. We've known each other since 2019 when we were on the same panel at Greenbuild, where we actually like to joke that we shared a stage with Obama. Not really, but we did speak.
A few short hours apart.
We did speak just after Obama, and I like to think I was sitting in his chair. So we have fond memories of that time, and a lot of, we've had a lot of fun working together over the years. So welcome to the show, Jeff. I'll pass the mic over to you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thanks. Yes, so glad to be here and glad to be chatting with you today, Emma. It's been a great journey. And I guess, it's really interesting times now, too. We haven't seen shift in the field or in the world, I guess, in politics and public sentiment like this for years. There's a lot of uncertainty in the sustainability field. And I think it's particularly unsettling for people who haven't been in this profession more than 10 years. The last 10 years was characterized by pretty consistent expansion in the field, growth in the job market. Many of the issues have matured in ways that they weren't able to previously. But, if you go back a little bit further, we weathered some pretty strong sustainability storms in the past. This field's been emerging for, I've been in it for 20 years now as a sustainability professional and almost 30 if you count the environmental side of my experience. Back in the global recession, which is now, over 15 years ago, it was declared at one point like sustainability's dead. Like there's, companies can't do this anymore. It's dead. And, it clearly wasn't dead. And it's not now, I guess, there's one thing else to bring to the plate here. It's sort of, we've been tested before. We are being tested again. It forces us to kind of pivot, learn to speak the language of business a little bit deeper. We have to grow. We have to find, we get pressure tested, and that's okay. That's part of the evolution here. So yeah, it's a difficult time, and
yes, unprecedented.
It's an interesting time. It's an interesting time, and I'm having a lot of fun. I'm having probably more fun in my career than I've ever had. It's just time for us to, learn to pivot and learn to take things in new ways. So very happy to sit and chat with you today and talk a little bit about HelloFresh as well. Just really quickly for our listeners, HelloFresh, just to make sure we set the baseline, HelloFresh is a meal solutions company. Our primary product is a meal kit. that is portioned food that we send to your home with a recipe card. It's very convenient and easy. You select 2 to 5 recipes off of a website. They show up at your home a couple days later, and essentially it's very easy to cook at home, live your values, experience delicious food. What many people don't know is that we're actually a collection of brands. So the HelloFresh brand, many people know. Green Chef is an organic-focused meal kit company. Every Plate is a value-focused meal kit company. And Factor is actually a heat and eat company that we own as well, along with some other emerging brands like Pet's Table, pet food company, and Good Chop, who sends protein direct to your home. So collection of brands. And I am privileged to really be looking at sustainability across all of those brands at this point. So
fantastic. Thank you so much for that overview, Jeff. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard of at least one of those brands. Now you know that HelloFresh is the overarching company on top of those brands. So I'm excited to dig in a little bit more with you on the work that HelloFresh is doing around sustainability that you're driving. But before we do that, and maybe as a preview into that work, I'd love for you to ground us a little bit in what I outlined for our listeners at the beginning. I'm really interested in hearing a little bit more from you about your professional philosophy and how it aids the work that you're doing today, the important work that you're doing today with HelloFresh.
right on. Yeah, I mean, I grew up, my dad was an Eagle Scout. We spent a lot of time outside, canoe trips, camping. So it developed a love of the outdoors at a very early age. Back in around probably 1999, I was on a backcountry hike on the Continental Divide here in Colorado. And I remember just standing there taking in the immensity of what was around me and just kind of hit me that, like, how dare I do anything with my career other than protect and preserve this? So, environmental stewardship, in my opinion, is really a responsibility. And so over time, this kind of evolved into a question like, how do we stop waste before it even begins? My career went into environmental consulting very early. I did a lot of waste consulting, permitting, wastewater, those types of things, very kind of nuts and bolts. And then at some point, I just had this thought of like, how do we get in front of this? And I decided to go to business school and really try to learn to speak the business of language, and, took that same question and evolved it into sort of something that's a little bit more sustainability oriented. Like, how do we create more good instead of trying to do less bad? That type of thing. So, for me, it really is about how do we bring these things together, a love for the outdoors, a love for community, and the need to steward those things and actually the responsibility to do so. But to really bring that into business, if we get really philosophical, we can talk about ways that business needs to be a responsible member of the local community and these things like social license to do business. But frankly, as I look at it as a professional, I'm always looking at how do we build that into the business in a functional way that's on brand, helps the business be seen as an entity with its own characteristics, as a brand wants to be, but is still seen also as a meaningful member of the community, and basically sort of not just a taker, but really a business that cares about common goals with the community. So for me, fusing sustainability with business really means exactly that. Like, how do we bring those things together? Business has very powerful goals, and frankly, they're not profitable. They don't get to stay a business, but that doesn't mean that they can't think differently and approach things in such a way that they're stewarding these resources that we share in these communities that, frankly, our employees work in.
Yeah. And thank you for describing that philosophy a bit more to sort of link us back to your original sort of current state of the environmental landscape right now. We are in unprecedented times. And I think what you mentioned at the top of the show around, how we have to start thinking and speaking differently, this is really forcing us to do that now, right? And so I think a lot of us knew that sustainability was good for business, but now that needs to be the leading narrative, right? And I think that's actually a good thing, and it really plays well with the philosophy you just outlined for us. So, and if you know Jeff like I do, Jeff, I can see that you're so passionate about this work, and it really comes through in all the work that you do. And ClimeCo has been very fortunate to have worked with HelloFresh on some of your sustainability initiatives. But I'd love for our listeners to better understand, what does a meal solutions company do around sustainability? Could you outline some of the initiatives you're working on for me?
I definitely can. So just to sort of draw the outline of the program that I manage and what we do here from a sort of a pillars approach, we're focused on food waste as a superset to that, all waste, but food waste is the majority of the waste that we have. Greenhouse gases and energy, of course, packaging, which is just a central pain point, I think, around meal kits and home delivery in general. Sustainable sourcing. We do sit on top of a very large supply chain. Social impact falls into my team, and I'll talk to that a little bit. And then actually human rights due diligence also falls under my team. So that's sort of the scope of what I manage. I think to really start us off, if we think about, we are fundamentally a food company. And so food waste is a huge piece of the conversation for us. The impact of food waste is incredibly significant. I mean, many of us have heard the statistic that about 40% of our food supply goes to waste, and it's filling our landfills instead of our bellies, right? So it's wasting investments that went into creating that food. There's emissions there's lots of human resources put into it. And then it goes to a landfill and generates methane as it rots. And, that's a greenhouse gas that's about 30 times more potent than CO2. So there's a couple of ways that comes together. And I think food is absolutely the center of the global sustainability conversation. And addressing that issue really requires a lot more than individual effort. Here at HelloFresh, we really believe that lasting solutions to hunger and climate relief come from long-term partnerships and really unite the strengths of large companies and nonprofits. So we do quite a bit of collaboration. That's really where our social impact program evolved out of. To kind of tackle food waste briefly for a moment, the meal kit model inherently supports the reduction of food waste really in two ways. So within our operations and then at the point of consumption by our customers. Internally, we have very, very low unsold inventory, I might call that. So we have a website approach. We're doing a lot of advanced analytics. We're really trying to predict what we're going to need and streamline our supply chain to reduce waste, almost from a business conversation and efficiency perspective. But then when we get into our facilities and we have what I would call, unsold inventory or surplus at the end of the week when we're changing our recipes over half of that goes to local nonprofits that are supporting families who are battling food insecurity.
Wow.
We continue to work with our quality team to figure out how do we get as much of that unsold inventory into the hands of local food rescue charities in order to put food where it's supposed to be, which is in people's mouths. But then the rest of it, much of which is not edible, we really work to keep out of landfill through things like composting and biogas digesters. And we continue to ask ourselves, what does zero food waste look like? How close to it can we get? And then we continue to expand that conversation into sort of all waste. And then at the customer level, pre-portioned meals really reduce in-home food waste and simultaneously kind of hack the process of home cooking at the same time, make it easy, fun, delicious. So there was actually a 2021 life cycle assessment by the University of Michigan that showed meal kits lower the carbon footprint of making dinner by over 25%.
Wow.
And that was driven mainly by reduced food waste and efficient logistics. It didn't even really capture the benefit of portion size control and some of the pieces that come with that too. So again, food waste, huge pieces of that, and then frankly, just to kind of continue that thread, on the social impact side, during pandemic, our U.S. headquarters is in New York City. Our largest distribution center is in Newark. They were very hard hit at the beginning of the pandemic. And so we very quickly worked with some of our charity partners, reached out and really started collaborating around what would a meal kit for the food insecure look like? How would that be different from our retail product? How would we deliver that? How would we mobilize it into the community? And we came up with a program under HelloFresh that's called Meals with Meaning. And essentially that's a meal kit for the food insecure. In 2024, we distributed about 40,000 of those a week into the communities around our facilities. And we partnered with local charities to get those packed. And then either the charity and or a local municipal group to identify who are the most food insecure and the most sensitive, and how do we get food to them? How do we make them aware that there is some kind of a distribution happening? So it was this fantastic public-private partnership around food and food insecurity that allowed us to essentially make our product available into these communities and to people who really, really needed it and were struggling with food insecurity. So for us, like, it really all starts with food. I can go into other parts of the program as well that I mentioned from the pillar perspective, but that's really the fundamental for us, is focusing on food, both at customer side, our operational side, and then even from a social impact perspective.
It's really amazing and very inspiring. Thank you for sharing those wonderful examples. Who knew that HelloFresh was doing so much? And
we're going to hit a 10 million meal distribution milestone actually this spring, a little bit later this spring. And we literally launched the program in the middle of a pandemic, early sort of, I guess, Q2 of 2020. And to be hitting a 10 million meal milestone so quickly is really fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. I was explaining, Jeff, last night to a friend of mine actually about the implicit sustainable function of a meal kit. And I was explaining, you go to a store, you pick up a ton of groceries, you come home, you might have a plan for the week, you might not, but ultimately, you're buying a full carrot, you're buying a full banana, a full package of chicken. Well, with HelloFresh, those are pre-portioned. So you think about the amount of food waste. You'll always have some food left over if you're going with the traditional sort of go to the grocery store, buy your groceries. Whereas with HelloFresh, you've got a pre-portioned kit and no food waste. So
yeah, I don't think there's anybody who hasn't encountered like half a bundle of scallions that are all squishy in the fridge, or disappointment with 2/3 of a bundle of cilantro or parsley in the fridge that you really had high hopes for and just didn't hang on long enough for you. That's where we're sending you 7 or 8 stalks of cilantro, or a couple of scallions. And actually, if you've ever used a meal kit, you've probably used scallions or zested a lime. It's part of what we try to bring some of that fun into it as well. But the food waste is significant. And I think that's kind of a sleeper issue in sustainability. We all kind of look at food waste and just sort of like, well, I guess that's just how it is. We don't really know how to fight it. And so meal kits really are a disruptive approach to just how we think about food in the first place.
Yeah, no, I love that and that angle, and that it's really inherent in your business model. So I want to touch on a topic, Jeff, and take us back to our 2019 panel where I was actually speaking on behalf of McDonald's at the time, McDonald's Sustainability. And I think you were with Green Chef, which was acquired by HelloFresh. And that's how you ended up in your current role. But I remember us talking about a topic on that panel around democratizing sustainability for food systems. And so the concept being that a consumer can access a sustainable food or food product, and it doesn't have to cost them any more money, because I think we have this sort of conception that sustainability comes at a premium cost, right? So if you're going to Whole Foods, you're thinking, I'm going to have to spend a lot more to get a sustainable food product. But I think what we're saying and what we've been saying for the last 6 years is that's not the case, right? And so it was my mission at McDonald's. I think it's your mission today to democratize sustainability, make it accessible for everyone So can you tell me a little bit sort of about that concept? Any more thoughts to add there?
No, that's awesome. Thank you. So I first came up with this saying of like fusing sustainability with business in really like early 2000s or so. And I still to this day sits with me because that's really where this all comes together, right? I mean, as a meal kit company, we are trying to bring a lot more efficiency into food systems. We're trying to make them accessible. We are available nationwide. We will ship wherever you are. So, the idea of a food desert, all of a sudden we can ship into that and democratize food. And then in terms of just making it accessible to people, there's a lot of folks who have not learned cooking skills the way I did in my mother's kitchen. And so, learning to develop knife skills and chopping skills and sauteing and what is this thing called a pan sauce? And why would I want to zest that piece of citrus before I squeeze it? And how do I really use all of these ingredients? There's this fascinating space in meal kits where we've taken a step. I think there's more steps to take in this world, but we've gotten to pre-portioning, reducing food waste at home and really making our supply chain very efficient, democratizing access to that and making it available no matter where you are, and then making it easy. I mean, these recipes are probably 6 steps in general.
I can attest they are easy. Yes, I love them. And it's a great way too, Jeff, to cook with your family, right?
So we taught my son to cook. At first we'd have him making at least 1 meal a week and it'd be agonizingly slow to watch him chop a zucchini. But by the time he's in his 20s, he's sort of just like very comfortably cutting things, chopping things up in the kitchen, making food. He's got skills. Like as a parent, that was like a massive win.
My gosh.
Know that my child can cook for themselves.
It's amazing. Well, thank you for outlining the many initiatives that you're working on in sustainability for HelloFresh. I hope that our listeners will feel good when they buy HelloFresh and know that there are sustainable initiatives happening behind the scenes. So with that, Jeff, I know this felt like it went too fast, but I would like to give you the opportunity to leave our listeners with one last message during our time today. So I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I'll kind of go back a little bit to where we started. I mean, these are interesting times and it's going to test us. You will be tested in the next year. Your resolve will be tested. And I really encourage everybody to, we have to do what we think is right. That may lead some of us out of sustainability, and that may lead other people into it. But just because things are changing doesn't mean there isn't a space for you. It's a time for us to grow. I think, I've heard a quote lately that, it's not game over, it's game on. So don't feel like this is going away because it's definitely not. We will be tested. Every industry gets tested. Every person gets tested. I can trace back through my own career and find times where I wasn't sure what direction I was going to go. But I followed my gut. I followed what I thought was right for me to do. And the right opportunities popped up for me. It wasn't easy. It didn't always pay really well, but it was there for me. And, now I'm 20 years down the line and it's kind of history, but it definitely wasn't easy at the beginning. And, just because it isn't easy, I guess, doesn't mean it's not worth it. And that's really what I would leave people with is, when I look at my career, what I was asking was that when I got to be 70 years old or whatever, that I would look back and know that it was worth it. That for me is what's most important. And I would encourage you to pursue work that you believe will be worth it.
What a message to leave our listeners with. And not only worth it, Jeff, it's fun. I've had a lot of fun working with you over the years, and I look forward to continuing that work together. So
it's been a great journey.
Thank you for being on the show today, Jeff, and we wish you all the best in the great work that you're doing.
I look forward to working together even more. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to ESG Decoded. We hope this episode has inspired you to take action in your own ESG journey, stimulating ideas for partnership and innovation.
New episodes drop bi-weekly on Tuesday morning. Subscribe now on your favorite streaming platform to stay in the loop.
Join the conversation on social media using @ESG Decoded or visit ClimeCo.com for more resources.
Until next time, keep decoding, keep innovating, and keep making a positive impact.